everybody, here are three very different spiders. By the way, each of them is poisonous in its own way. Just let's look at them in more detail. The first one is the red-haired Mexican bird eater. Next comes the steppe tarantula, and in the last container, the black widow. Despite the fact that it is the smallest, the black widow is the most energetic among this trio. In addition, it is the most poisonous and dangerous of the three. According to one of the ratings, the black widow is on the 5th place among spiders with the deadliest venom. The most venomous spiders live in Australia and Brazil, and they are far away. Well, this one will live with us for a while, although what do we consider them through the walls of the container? You can also open up the lid and just look at them, each of them closer. Of the three spiders, only the bird eater is able to move on smooth surfaces. Fortunately, it is quite slow and its movement is easy to control. The bite of the black widow itself cannot be called painful, but after a few minutes an acute pain appears in the bitten place. It may be accompanied by the appearance of a red rash and seizures, and if you help a person in time, then in a couple of days the consequences of the bite will pass. Otherwise, even a fatal outcome is possible. On the big ass, you can see the dents where the red dots used to be located. By the way, the black widow venom is 15 times more toxic than rattlesnake venom. Oddly enough, of all the three representatives, he differs in that he weaves a web. Most likely, this spider will like to live in the upper part of the terrarium. Actually, a black widow is not so scary. He attacks only if he feels threatened. Oh yeah, I forgot to say something. Although you probably saw everything in the title of the video, all three spiders will live in the same terrarium. We are wondering how they will be able to get along in the same territory and whether they will be able to get to it all. We're about to find out, so in the meantime, let's get back to the spiders. The red-bellied Mexican bird eater is not as dangerous as the black widow. However, it is still poisonous, like the other spiders on our list. However, the toxicity of its venom, even in comparison with other bird eaters, is considerably low. Besides, this is one of the most peaceful and non-aggressive spiders. The bite of this bird eater is comparable in pain to the bite of a wasp or a bee. But they bite quite rarely, and they rely more on burning hairs from their paws. As we have already said, this is the only spider capable of moving on smooth surfaces. He does this with the help of the similarity of suckers on his legs. If the black widow was on the 5th place in the most poisonous rating, then the tarantula takes the 8th place. Its venom is not as toxic as that of the black widow, but the bite can be compared to a hornet in painful sensations. For people and large animals, tarantula bites are not as dangerous as for its closest neighbors from the insect world, but it is still undesirable to get one. Tarantulas like to settle in the ground, so we will provide him with proper conditions. We will make a terrarium out of the very aquarium in which bees once lived. But their story is already over, and for spiders, everything is just beginning. The aquarium is quite roomy, and considering that the three spiders will be placed in there at once, this is very important. There are already ventilation holes in the upper part, as well as a pull-up lid for feeding. The only drawback lies in the hole in the glass made under the landing platform, but it is easily fixable. A small piece of mesh, a little glue, and we have additional ventilation. However, it's time to move on to the design of the terrarium. And let's start with the ground. We choose coconut substrate as this component. According to the instructions written on the bag, the contents of the package should be filled with 2 liters of water and left for 3 hours. As a result, we should get 5 to 6 liters of ready-made soil. We open it up and put the blank into the terrarium. We figured this out and decided that for the optimal amount, we would need 2 such briquettes. And for the water to not flow out through the vent, we will put the dishes in at an angle. And let the briquettes absorb 4 liters of water. Having absorbed moisture, the substrate has reached the desired consistency, but that's not all. Now we will distribute the soil all over the bottom, forming a landscape. On one side we will have a hill, and the other half will become lowlands. The last stage of the transformation of the aquarium into a terrarium will be the arrangement of the interior. Since the bird eater is a lover of secluded places, we will organize a coconut shell house for him. Carefully cut off one of the sides of the nut with a hacksaw on the wood, and then take out all of the pulp. And the house is ready. We'll put this in the corner of the terrarium and fill all the cavities with soil so that it looks as natural as possible in this environment. We will also add a wooden snag to the interior and also a hollow piece of bone, which can also serve as a house for somebody. In the second corner, we send a sandstone stone decorating the dwelling for spiders. Well, in the final touch for the decoration here of the terrarium, an old-fashioned amphora craft will appear. Although there is still something left, the lid left over from the coconut will become a vessel for water. After all, every living organism needs water, including spiders. Since everything is ready here, it's time to move on to the settlement. And the first bird eater is launched into the terrarium. Once inside, the spider immediately freezes up and begins to pretend that it is not a spider at all, but just like part of the interior. Let's offer him a feeding cockroach and see how he will snack on it. The cockroach fell right in front of the spider's nose, but for some reason it wasn't interested at all. The cockroach turned over, shrugged his shoulders, and went to burrow into the ground. The bird eater reacted to this in about no way. And when we brought the cockroach to the very mandibles of the spider, he'd be completely pulled away, as if it had apathy for everything. Indeed, the bird eater is too non-aggressive and phlegmatic. Well, or he's just getting used to the new environment. So that he does not get bored in there and in the company of a cockroach, it's time to move a tarantula into the bird eater as well. And it turned out to be much livelier than the other tenant. Noticing the bird eater climbing a snag, the tarantula immediately ran up to meet him, and the tarantula, by the way, had a very interesting way of moving, by short, fast dashes. Then he stops and sits in one place, assessing the situation. We also offered him a cockroach, but the tarantula, like the bird eater, showed no interest in the meal. And when the treat itself crept up to the spider, he was not happy about this. And here's another spider. This is a more interesting object, only it is not clear yet. Is this a comrade or a potential competitor? The bird eater dived into the hole between the snag and the wall of the aquarium and froze there, and the tarantula just followed him. He climbed in and was like, "Hey, let's move, you're not alone here after all. I also need to hide somewhere and hang out." For quite a long time, the spiders hung out in one place without any action, so without thinking twice, we decided to eliminate this hole. And then into the back of the terrarium, and the observation there was not at all convenient. Left without a cozy place, the spiders sat down opposite each other and froze in anticipation. What's gonna happen now? Pretty quickly, the bird eater got bored with this activity and decided to retire. By the way, pay attention at how impressively he walks around the terrarium. But then he climbed up on the wall at all, using his suction cups and beginning to sit there. Yes, this spider is very phlegmatic. It's time to launch the most poisonous of the inhabitants, the black widow, into the terrarium. He is not only the most venomous, but also the most active. The spider immediately began to explore the expanses of his new house. A thin thread of a web stretches behind the black widow from the very appearance. He was especially interested in the same craft in the form of an amphora. But the black widow got tired of it quickly and started wandering around the neighborhood of the terrarium again. In search of a house for himself, the spider even climbed to the very top of the snag. As it turned out, it was necessary to start weaving a tree with a web. In the end, the black widow chose the sandstone and settled there. An hour of cohabitation has passed, and the bird eater climbed into a coconut shell where the cockroach, aka the food, unexpectedly settled down. Pretty fast walking delicacy got tired of annoying the spider and it decided to leave. By the way, it turned out that the snag is quite habitable and ants live inside of it. I wonder if they will eventually become food for the spiders, or will they take over the entire terrarium and make it their own possession? Here, as in the wild, there is an entire ecosystem. These are definitely not sterile laboratory conditions. The black widow made an attempt to climb the wall, but was defeated. Meanwhile, 2 cockroaches have already settled in the coconut shell, which seems to be inhabited by a bird eater. The spider obviously didn't like it, and he began to leave quietly. And then the black widow looked at the light to fall again. The bird eater finally decided to get away from this fun, but he met a wall on his way and forgot where he was going. As a result, the furry predator decided to hang on a snag in the company of the ants. And how is the tarantula doing? He started digging a hole for himself in the substrate, but when he noticed that he was being removed, he immediately stopped working. By the way, we forgot to say that tarantulas dig holes in which they then live. That's why we made this mound in the corner. Let's see if he guesses about our plan or not. The tarantula did not like it in very much in the open area, and he found himself a secluded corner near the sandstone. But let's not forget that spiders are most active at night. So we close the terrarium with the lid and return it to tomorrow morning. A new day has come, and it's time to see how the spiders are doing there. The tarantula was the most active last night. He didn't waste any time in vain and managed to dig a pretty solid hole. However, the place he chose for himself was a little different from what he had prepared for him. Our plans were to settle the tarantula on a hill, and there the hole would have turned out much deeper. But the spider apparently had his own opinion on this. But he designed his house in such a way that even from the side you can see what he is doing inside. The black widow apparently settled inside the snag. At least he would not only find it, only a spider web is visible near the hollow in the tree. He's probably out there somewhere. Of all the variety of houses that we had prepared, namely the coconut and the piece of old bone, nothing came up to the bird eater. Instead, he just chose a jug as a shelter. On all the sides of the picture, the bird eater even set traps made of cobwebs. Yes, and he braided everything here quite decently, both the top of the jug and the side entrance. Well, who is interested in what will happen next, please like this video and we will definitely return to this topic.